Hey, Mark here again. All right, so in this video, we are talking about why create software for my boss for free. So if you follow this roadmap, your boss is going to own the IP, intellectual property, to any software you create. Okay, it's just because you're using a company laptop and you're doing it on company time or arguably on company time. The rules vary by state and your employment contract, but just consider it a done deal. They will own it. And my advice is to get over it and trust me, it will not matter. All right, we're going to create a catch 22 where you win no matter what happens. All right, my goal in this video is to persuade you that learning to code at work, in spite of the IP issue, it is the dominant and superior path under all scenarios. Okay, my news feed is swamped with articles where basically on display Gen Z and millennials are expressing extreme animosity towards corporate employers and even capitalism at large. The mantra goes, don't work a minute for free. I could not disagree more strongly with this sentiment. There is an old British saying, in for a penny, in for a pound. You're going to spend 33% of your waking adult life working. And my view is, don't minimize work, optimize work. When an architect designs a building, they start by examining the characteristics of a vacant lot of land. What is the soil like? Is it rocky? Are there boulders? What about topography? Does it have gentle sloping hill, a steep hill? Or maybe it is utterly and completely flat, like where I live here in Texas. There could also be a gigantic river running through the middle of the site. The architect then designs for the site, okay, by playing off those characteristics. The characteristics themselves are not necessarily good or bad, they just are. Think of work as a river that runs through your life. My message for you is, when architecting your life, don't ignore the river and don't minimize the river. Harness the river, which is to say, install hydropower turbines, right? Okay. Let's do a thought experiment. You've decided that you want to code, okay? You want to learn to code. So we're going to walk into the future and imagine what the world looks like by asking 3 questions. 1, where will I find the time to learn? Okay? 2, what language or framework will I learn? And question 3, how will I apply what I learn? For each of these questions, we're going to answer under the modern progressive Reddit plan or the roadmap I'm proposing to you. So for question 1, where will I find the time to learn? Under the modern progressive plan, you will get home after a long day at work and be exhausted from toiling under the machine. You'll boot up your personal laptop, because remember, we're doing this independently to avoid any clash over IP rights. You'll choose a language like Python or JavaScript, maybe even a compiled language like C#, because that's what modern progressive advice suggests you do. You'll log on to Code Academy and start slogging through learning tracks. You'll learn some things, maybe write them down, like maybe notation for arrow functions in JavaScript. Your dog will be confused and upset because you're not taking him for a walk, which is what you used to do after work. Online tutorials are gamified. So each time you complete a lesson module, electronic confetti will fall from the sky, and at the end of the larger unit of curriculum, you will get a digital trophy. You will find yourself yearning to get to the end, to get to the confetti, so that you can be done with this work, so that you can check another box. Okay? The next day, you go back to work, run into a standard BS problem, and think, wow, I wish I could use my coding skills right now. All right, how do you find time under the Maverick path? You get to work 45 minutes early and you build one thing each day. I will paraphrase something called the planning fallacy, which says we overestimate what we can do in one day and we underestimate what we can do over time. My practical advice, do coding and learning before opening Outlook, Teams, or Slack Messenger. No matter how tempting it might be, keep them closed. Open Excel, go to the VBA editor, and do not look at Outlook, all right? What I used to tell employees, who were learning at work is, you pray before going to battle, not during battle, okay? Because once proverbial bullets start flying, usually in the form of Outlook emails, the urgency of the day takes over and you lose the headspace to do like deep thinking work. As an aside, Sunday afternoon is my favorite time to code. Dogs be damned. Question 2, what language or framework will I choose? Under the modern progressive path, you will choose Python or JavaScript. But first, you will struggle to choose because of a paradox known as choice overload. So you can take a snip or whatever if you want on this, but basically it's a jam study where they offered people 24 different flavors of jam on one day, and then on another day they just offered them 6 flavors. And the sales were significantly larger when only six flavors were offered, okay? Which doesn't really make sense, but it comes down to people being overwhelmed by choice and then not making any decision at all. All right, so I dug in, and there's some contradiction about it or whatever, but it basically holds more true when the decision is complex or unfamiliar, chooser has low domain knowledge, options are difficult to compare, okay? When I asked specifically about programming, choosing a programming language, it says perfect storm, okay? So, you know, no matter what you do, you will struggle to choose and you'll second guess yourself, all right? Under the Maverick plan, okay? So back to the Maverick plan, you're on a corporate company issued laptop. You have one choice, okay? And that's Visual Basic for Applications, otherwise known as VBA. Technically, you could use JavaScript, but I'm not gonna waste your time explaining why not to do that. VBA is already built into Excel, Word, and Outlook. VBA does not require any permission or mother may I groveling to an IT officer. And VBA as a language was originally designed for non-coders, okay? It was meant for business people, not scientists or video game engine type applications. So in other words, VBA was custom tailored for you. Question 3, and don't underestimate like just having that choice made for you, having to not think about it. It will be liberating. It's not constraining, it's liberating. Question 3, how will I apply what I learn? So under the modern progressive path, you learn Python, JavaScript, or maybe C#. Are you going to become a professional software developer? Are you going to quit your day job and go join a tech firm? Because if so, I have some news here for you to see. I don't think it's going to be like roses and peaches in the tech industry in the next few years. Nor do I think that coding is going to go away. I think it will change, okay? So the future does not belong to professional programmers. It belongs to people who can will and steer machines to achieve useful ends, okay? And that's exactly what we're trying to do. Entry-level comp sci jobs, like I think that they're in trouble. I think it'll be hard to come in as a pure technologist, entry level with no domain experience, you know, in some business segment. That's how it's going to be. All right, so you're not going to go this route, let's say. So that means you want to apply your coding skills. You didn't just learn it for no reason. So somehow you managed to convince you know, the IT department to give you C# or Python or whatever on your machine. There are a million questions from there. How are you going to share your programs with users? Are they just going to go back to Excel anyways? How are your users going to handle the twists and turns unless you've coded all of the different variations that can come up? You know, in Excel, it's no problem, right? You just fork to the side. But if you're not in Excel, then it kind of begs the question of how you will handle that variation. Meanwhile, tick tock, because your knowledge on JavaScript arrow functions is starting to decay. But, you know, at the end of the day, at least you didn't work an extra minute for your employer. Under the Maverick plan, how will I apply my coding skills question is moot, because you've been doing it from day one. And I want to tell you something else. The principles of object-oriented programming, which you will immediately begin to learn just from using the add-in, will make it easy to switch to Python, JavaScript, or C#. I think there's way too much emphasis put on, specific programming languages. And I think if you talk to really experienced programmers, they would tell you the same thing. All right. The fundamentals are generally the same between them. It's just there's different syntax, different conventions, and fundamentally they're all pretty similar. So anyone who tells you, a squawker who tells you, oh, VBA is a bad language, or VBA will ruin you as a programmer, first of all, bullshit. Second of all, even if that were true, what overwhelmingly matters far more than what language you select is that you code anything at all, okay? Because that is the only way you're gonna build a mental model, okay? You're not gonna build a mental model sitting on your ass deliberating, what language to choose or what IDE to use, all these tooling questions. That is not gonna get you anything. You just need to get in there and write lines of code. So it basically boils down to probability. The probability that you try in the first place and the probability that you succeed. I think I have it here. Will you try to code? Yes, no. Will you succeed with code? Okay. My job is to get you to say yes here and to get you to succeed here. Okay. And the determinative question of will you succeed once you're trying comes down to the balance between these green things, like hits of dopamine from making shit happen on your screen, to this bad stuff, which is I don't know, if you went to a LAN party and you were playing Counter-Strike with your friends, okay? The green stuff is running around the base, sniping, your enemies. And the bad stuff is taking 2 hours to figure out this Ethernet cord is fried. That is bad. There's a word for it. It's called toil. So here's a little Python cartoon about setting up Python. In reality, I don't think it's this hard. But honestly, when things get weird with your Python install, it is a pain in the ass to figure it out. And I have been there. So this isn't completely wrong either. With the add-in, VBA is just built in. Alt F11 and boom, it's here. And to get the add-in, you're going to download a single file and drop it in your Excel start folder. So, done. Let me pause there. Okay, we're at 12 minutes or something like that. So let me hustle and finish it. I want to riff out a little bit from the last question. How will I apply what I learned? Okay, which is really to say, what will you build? Because it is mission critical that you are continuously applying and reapplying what you learn. Otherwise, you will not retain it. I think that you already know that. So let's talk about fishing. All right. I was talking with ChatGPT this morning about what makes a good fisherman. Really interesting stuff. But a lot of it comes down to the waters, knowing what waters, where the fish will be. And I'm not a fisherman, so please pardon me, real fishermen who are out there. Your work, the problems in your work. So if you're in a work environment where a lot of people are in Excel all day, I guarantee you, there's fish there. You might not be able to see the fish. And when I say fish, I mean interesting, low-hanging fruit problems that you can basically attack with code, okay? Code is a form of leverage. And you can just wipe out those problems and help yourself and help your colleagues. What makes it so beautiful for you and sort of the nail in the coffin on the why to code at work is that your work has all of these things, these ripe jobs to work on. And you know that they're of commercial value because someone is paying you and your colleagues to do this work. Okay, if it wasn't valuable or if it wasn't needed, they wouldn't be paying you to do it. So by default, there's your market study. Okay, where you work, is restricted waters. Okay, I can't just come in and program stuff in your work. I don't have a badge to get in the office building. I haven't signed an employment contract, and I don't have a mental model for your specific industry, company, or domain. Okay. You have all three of those things. So the waters are rich. If I was a fish, I would probably choose to live in restricted waters. All right. Let's see. The last thing I want to mention is like this thing, photographer principle, seeing the shot. So if you're looking, and saying, I don't really know what I'm going to do yet, I wouldn't worry. I would suggest that you sort of like, you can't see what's around the river bend until you swim there, is just get in and start going. Start writing code. Because like if you and I both walk down the street, we might not see, any good photo shots. But if a photographer walks down the street, he's going to see like 10 good shots, okay? Because he has a trained eye. The eye is trained to see it. And I think it's the same with code. You could sit on your butt and wait for sort of inspiration of like a great app idea all day. But I think if you actually start by doing, like kinesthetic, and writing code, like suddenly you're going to start to see opportunity everywhere. It's like this thing I call like fusion in your brain. You have to have domain knowledge, which you already have, but you also have to have the technical knowledge about what is possible. That's what comes from writing code. And then the last thing you need is just a little bit of imagination. Okay? When you mix those three things, dude, the sky is the limit. It really is. I guarantee that the problem you will have is not one of, I can't find any fish. It's, I don't know what fish to spear first. Where's my little fish picture? I got one for you guys. See? There's the fish. There's you. So that's why you should code at work. And thanks for your time.